What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Friday Undefeated Post-Weigh-In Show, the best betting damn show of your week, especially when it comes to mixed martial arts. We've taken a look at the fighters. Everybody's weighed in for UFC Vegas 57. Now we get to put our tinfoil hats on and see if we can find any extra smidgen of value based on what we've saw. We put all of our thoughts from the entire week in one big cauldron and we mix it and churn it out, and hopefully we can find ourselves a couple of winning bets. Let's dig straight on into this thing. First fight of the night, we've got Vanessa Demopoulos taking on Jinh Frey. And what we've got in this particular spot here is Vanessa Demopoulos actually gave us a little bit of a scare. She was the last one to come to the scale. She took forever getting into the weigh-ins, so I was honestly a little bit nervous that she was going to have a towel situation or a box of shame situation. She ends up getting it done. Massive relief on her face when she got called or on her weight there. 115.5. Both women made the same mark here. Big smile from Vanessa, but you could tell this one was pretty tough for her to get done. She's well-muscled. She's thick. We can expect that from her. Now, Jinh Frey, no issues from her whatsoever. She's been doing this forever. She's a little bit older, consummate professional. When they faced off, this is the thing I was waiting for here. I was extremely tempted to take a shot on Vanessa Demopoulos here. I just kind of feel like this might be a changing of the guard spot. She's over at Fight Ready. We know she's physically strong. If they can kind of tweak her game and get this thing to the floor where she can use that submission grappling advantage, I actually think she's got a shot to pull off this fight. However, if she can't get it to the ground, I think she's kind of hosed because Jinh Frey in that big left hand, even though she's a little low volume, she's the better striker of the two. She is the bigger of the two. I was hoping that maybe the numbers were a little bit off like we've seen in the past before, and Vanessa would be on the same footing as Jinh Frey, maybe even a little bit bigger than Jinh Frey. That's not the case. Frey is definitely the bigger of the two women, and that's concerning because I've talked about how Frey came from 105. She's a smaller fighter in this weight class, and if she has a size advantage on Vanessa, that doesn't bode well for someone who needs to get it to the ground and does not have good offensive wrestling. So, I haven't changed my mind. This one stays a sub or bust type of situation here for Vanessa Demopoulos, in my opinion, and the weigh-ins have just kind of confirmed what I thought earlier in the week. I'm not looking to get involved here. The 8-1 sub prop on Vanessa Demopoulos, just because it's women's MMA, and if she gets knocked down or if there's a trip or a scramble, she could still maybe potentially pull that off. That's kind of the only way I would look to get involved here, but I'm not doing anything from a money line perspective. Maybe we look at something a little bit live and jump in that way or something, but nothing big. The next fight on the card, we've got Mario Bautista taking on my guy, Brian Boom Kelleher. Both guys made 135.5. Mario Bautista looked pretty dang sucked out. He's a tall guy for the division. You see that a lot. Gave a good flex. No real concerns. Brian Kelleher, classic Boom, showing the knuckles. You gotta love when he shows off the knuckle tattoos. He seems like he's ready to go for this one. Good height advantage here for Mario Bautista. A respectful face-off. This was not one that really surprised me in any way, shape, or form. We expected Mario Bautista to be taller and longer. We know Boom is a little more compact. These guys don't have any bad blood. This should be a dang good fight. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm tempted to go to war with my guy Brian Kelleher here. I worry a little bit about the speed, the movement, the height for Mario Bautista, but if Brian gets the wrestling going, I almost feel like it's over. Like, I think this thing's going over 2.5 to begin with. Boom is a real tough and durable guy. Bautista, Boom's real problem is when he gets submitted, right? He gets these slicker grapplers that are able to take advantage of his wrestling and catch him in something. Bautista's got a guillotine on him, but he's not, like, known for his guillotines. It's not, like, the same as some of the other fighters that Boom has been facing. So if he's not getting the sub, he's probably not knocking Kelleher out. And if he's not knocking Kelleher out, we got a competitive 15-minute fight. There might be some value on the dog here. Boom by decision at plus 450 actually has some interest here for me. And the over 2.5 at minus 125. Those are all kind of the spots that I looked at for this one. I didn't end up locking in anything officially at this point. Maybe do a Hail Mary with Brian Kelleher involved in it or something like that. But at this point, I have nothing. I'm just going to root for my guy. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Boom. Love the dude. Love his attitude. So let's go Boom. Hopefully he gets it done. Next fight up, JP Buys taking on Cody Durden. Both guys came in at 126 here. Buys looked relieved. Another guy that got on the scales and you were a little concerned based on his body language, but he gave a good solid flex afterward. The dude's back is just ridiculous. Cody Durden, glaring, intense flex from him. He's always kind of this high-intensity type of person. Slight size advantage goes to Cody Durden here in the face-off. Nothing really overly surprising in this spot either. I actually have a bet here on the under 2.5. I beat a big line movement on this spot. I think I got plus 135. This is down to plus 110. I know these guys are both primary grapplers, but I do think the way that they fight, it will force some kind of action. JP Buys is going to maybe have a submission upside advantage. I think he's going to be the stronger of the two, but he also has some chin concerns. Cody Durden likes to wing heavies. If he does get in a dominant wrestling position, probably goes to work with the hands. I do just think there's finishing upside for both guys here in this spot, so I'm betting on violence. Gun to my head, I'm going to pick JP Buys. I think JP Buys by submission. I'll probably have that in my Hail Mary parlay, but nothing solid from a side perspective since I'm pretty confident there in that under. Next fight on the card, Sergey Morozov taking on Raulian Paiva, 136. Everybody's weighing in the same today. Like, nobody's having, like, all these people are making the exact same mark today. Sergey Morozov came in, gave a solid flex. He's got an angry stare, glaring at the camera today. Raulian Paiva, no problems, just kind of a blank slate up there. Paiva's got a decent height advantage on this one. See, this is one of the ones that I was talking about where it kind of surprised me a little bit. Raulian Paiva's a decent bit larger than Sergey Morozov, and you wouldn't know that until you actually watch these guys stare down here. I assumed it would be kind of more of an equal footing situation. Now, Sergey Morozov, probably the more physical of the two, probably more, strong. We've seen Paiva kind of get bullied around the cage a couple of times, but that height and reach advantage is something that you can't overlook. This is another spot where I went to the under. I got plus 155. That's ticked down ever so slightly, and you know what? I totally forgot to shout out the sponsors this week. Superbook Sports is who's bringing us all of these lines, and at Superbook Sports right now, the under 2.5 is plus 145. So somebody sharp moved that line. It wasn't me, I promise you that. But I did get in on the plus 155. So I got the good number. It's taken a little movement down my direction. I just think the way Paiva blitzes in and is not defensively caring. He just has no concept of protecting his chin whatsoever. He comes forward, he punches 4 or 5 times in a row, leaves his chin out there to be cracked. He's paid for it already. I think he can get touched by Sergey Morozov, but Morozov falls apart, folks. Like, Morozov has this bad habit of, in rounds 2 and 3, slowing down after not getting his opponent out of there, and then he is susceptible to getting tapped. Paiva's a black belt. He's a BJJ black belt. Everyone talks about his length, his striking. People don't talk about the fact that this kid's got some grappling in his back pocket, and this is something we've seen Morozov fall to before. So while I personally think that, like, the pick is Morozov by knockout, those are probably the most likely outcomes here. You can't dispute the fact that Paiva is going to have a height advantage. You can't dispute the fact that he has he fills in the gap of Morozov's weakness, right? Like, he's got the BJJ, he's got the black belt, he's a dude that's known for taking a beating and sticking around late in fights. That is the kryptonite of Sergey Morozov. So I'm probably going to be sprinkling like a Paiva round 3 sub or something like that, and I think it's like 40-1. So I'll have a little taste of that Paiva sub in some way, shape, or form. Again, at this point though, just got the under, looking for violence, hoping for one heck of a fight. The next one we're talking about, TJ Brown, Shayilan, Nuerdanbieke. TJ Brown came in at 145.5. Shayilan made 146. TJ Brown had some heavy eyes up there on the scales. Now, both these guys are big dudes for the weight class, so it's not overly surprising that he struggles a little bit to get down. He looked fine, though, as soon as the weight got called, so it's not like the concerning, like they looked dead on the scales. Like, he just really looked worn out and was trying to get through it type of thing. Shayilan Nuerdanbieke looked jacked. This dude is huge. He's so broad. He's like 2 people standing next to each other. His cheekbones popping out, though. He's got those high cheeks and his face is all sucked out. He looked fine, though. Height advantage goes to TJ. Obviously, the thickness advantage goes to Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. Right now, TJ Brown is a minus 200 favorite. Shayilan is a plus 175 underdog. Some money has come in here on Shayilan Nuerdanbieke. This is a spot where I actually am pretty confident in TJ Brown. It's scary because TJ Brown is not someone you should be overly confident in. He just tends to make mistakes and fall apart, give his opponents opportunities. But I don't see the offense here from Shayilan. He's a guy that is super slow. He doesn't punch on the feet. He waits for a takedown. Once he gets the takedown, he can be dangerous from top position once he gets it to the ground. But if he's not on top of you, he really is not a threat. He's not doing any damage. He's not scoring any points. I think TJ Brown, working with Bryce Mitchell, will be able to out-wrestle and out-scramble someone like Shayilan. We've seen him susceptible to the butterfly hooks. We've seen him get swept. We've seen him get reversed. TJ Brown can do those things to this man. And then I think that TJ Brown will be able to kind of take control in the grappling thing. On top of that, TJ Brown's favorite move is the arm triangle. We've seen Shayilan on his record giving up a couple arm triangle chokes before. I think TJ Brown by sub is on the table here in this spot, and I probably will have some taste of that in some way. Next fight, we're talking about Tafon and Nchukwi, Carlos Ulberg. Nchukwi made 206. Ulberg made 204.5. And Tafon is just man mountain. Like, this guy is so big. It's ridiculous how big and broad Tafon is. Stoic up there on the scales today. In fact, almost kind of made a show of it. He was like slow walking his way up to the scale and off the scale today. It was interesting. It was like Darth Vader's theme music was playing for him as he was headed up there. Carlos Ulberg, I mean, I'm never going to get over it, guys. Like, I've got a crush on Carlos Ulberg. He looks like he's been chiseled out of marble. He stands up there. He's tall. He's an Adonis. Like, he's just in ridiculous shape. No wonder they wanted this guy for The Bachelor over there. Big height advantage for Carlos Ulberg. I've been struggling so hard with this spot. So, like, when we talked on Monday, we talked on the podcast, I wanted to be on Tafon and Nchukwi. I bet against Carlos Ulberg with the freaking water buffalo last time out. I should be going back to war with Tafon because he is a much better version of the guy I bet against Carlos Ulberg last time. And if it wasn't for, the water buffalo basically shelling up and being a punching bag in that fight, he might have actually somehow managed to win. So I was on the right track. I'm not overly impressed with Carlos Ulberg, but I missed the good money. I missed the plus 100 even money. Tafon's now a minus 125 favorite. So the market has gone ahead and shifted over from him being to the dog to him being the favorite. Carlos Ulberg is now plus 105 as the underdog. There's a massive size advantage here for Carlos Ulberg, and that was the thing that really kind of spooked me. I know that Tafon probably has a grappling advantage. Can he get it to the floor? I mean, we think he can, but taking down Mike Rodriguez, this might be a tougher challenge. We're not sure about that. We don't know until we get in there tomorrow in the cage. So if he can't get the takedowns, this is going to be a striking match. Carlos Ulberg has a speed advantage. Yes, Tafon is going to put him on the back foot, and that seems to be something that Ulberg struggles with. So, like, the path to victory is so crisp and clean and clear here. But Tafon also is just coming off of getting knocked out. And he's going up against a guy who's got a ton of kickboxing experience, some decent power, and some fast hands. If Carlos Ulberg is ever going to, like, clip somebody, this is going to be kind of the spot that he's going to be able to do it. I think I'm just settling on not flipping coins, folks. Like, this is a spot where there's a clear path to victory for both guys. The line is tight. I could have gotten in on Tafon early on. I'm coming off a bad week, so my balls have kind of shriveled up. I'm not super confident in anything this week. It's also, this card is a really tough card in my opinion. Like, a lot of people feel strongly about this card. I don't. I think that a lot of these matchups are very close. This is tightly lined. If you were going to get on Tafon, the line is moved. If you're being strict with your gambling and sports betting, the number's gone. You can jump in on Tafon now if you want to, but the number's gone. So yeah, if you're a just win better, go ahead, pick your side, go to war. I think I'm just passing. I'm done with this one. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to go ahead and just cry a little bit if Tafon wins. Next fight up, we have got my boy, Chris the Action Man Curtis, taking on Rodolfo Vieira. Curtis came in at 185.5. Vieira made 185 on the dot. Curtis came in looking thick. Like, I know he's like a natural 170 pounder. He put some muscle on for this fight. He knows what he's up against here. He's looking healthy, and he does his, usual big smile, fun-loving pose. The guy's just great. How can you not like Chris Curtis? And Rodolfo Vieira, somebody called Jeff Nowitzki. Like, you could smell this man walking up to the scale today. He is insanely ripped up, veins popping out everywhere when he's not even flexing. Like, I know he always looks like he's in crazy shape, but damn, it feels like he's got some extra supplements coming into this one. Chris Curtis at the face-offs did like the jiu-jitsu butt scoot at him, which anybody who plays jiu-jitsu, that's hilarious. That's absolutely fantastic. So, I mean, again, how do you not love this man? Both guys up there laughing, having a good time. This was a very friendly face-off. Rodolfo was not that much bigger than Chris Curtis. That's something that really kind of jumped out to me. Now, obviously, he's thicker. He's one of these guys that has, like, the broadest back you've ever seen because of all the jiu-jitsu and grappling. So we know he's probably going to have a strength advantage here in this spot. But I kind of expected him to really tower over Chris Curtis. I thought there was going to be a significant height advantage in this spot, but it just wasn't that way. Chris Curtis is not that much smaller than Rodolfo Vieira. So that gives me a little bit of confidence. Obviously, you guys know I'm going to war. I'm in here with Chris Curtis. I already locked him in. I got a bad number, minus 150. Money has been nonstop flooding in here on Rodolfo Vieira. Chris Curtis is down to minus 130. Rodolfo is plus 110 currently. I saw that dip down to plus 125 a little earlier in the week, and it seems to have come up just a little bit. Makes me feel a tidbit better. If I'm having a good night, or if I have like a good night in PFL or something, you guys, I might jump in on the lower number here on Chris Curtis, just because I love the guy and he has yet to let me down. There's some people out there talking about how this is a buy low spot on Rodolfo. You know, Chris Curtis is a great underdog, but now he's being asked to win as the favorite. But this is also a clear spot where you look back on those fights and you go, you know what? They just got those lines wrong, didn't they? Like, Chris Curtis never should have been plus 270. He should have never been plus 250. Rodolfo Vieira didn't really deserve to be minus 300 in his last fight. Like, I think this is a spot where these corrections are accurate. Not overcorrecting, but correcting. Like, we realize now that Chris Curtis is no joke. We realize now, or at least we knew, the bookies are realizing now that Chris Curtis is no joke and not someone who's just going to get rolled over on. And they're realizing that while Rodolfo Vieira has this high-tier black belt hunter level game in jiu-jitsu, he's not the end-all be-all that people expected to be. He's got a questionable gas tank. His striking isn't there yet. So I think this is just a natural progression of things. I get people buying low on Rodolfo. That's fine. Good luck to you if you went that way. I'm rolling with Chris Curtis. I'm going to rely on his durability, the gas tank, his ability to wrestle and keep this fight standing. And one last thing. Rodolfo Vieira is the black belt hunter. He submits black belts. That's his thing. Chris Curtis is not a black belt. Rodolfo Vieira can't submit him because he is not a black belt. That's how it works. The tinfoil hat has spoken. No black belt, no submission loss. Let's go, Chris Curtis. Give me that round 3 TKO. All right, we're moving on. Next up, Nate Maness taking on Umar Nurmagomedov. Maness came in at 135, Nurmagomedov 136. Maness was all business. Blank stare, stone cold killer. I mean, this guy is like legitimately terrifying when he's up there on the scale. Umar Nurmagomedov also was all business. He kind of had the crazy eyes flex thing going on, though. Y'all know how I feel about the crazy eyes. Like my cousin Michelle always says, you don't bet against crazy. So, question. When they face off, I mean, there's a significant size advantage here for Nate Maness, and I was talking about this. I was very interested to see how these guys shaped up with each other here. It was a respectful face-off. It was all good, but these guys are just ready to go to war. We've got Umar as a minus 1050 favorite right now. Plus 675 is the underdog, Nate Maness. And I've been talking about this one all week, and I know everyone's been screaming at me through the screen. I can hear your fingers going on the type. Guys, I think I have to go to war with Nate Maness here. And there's a lot of you doing the, hey, just win thing, don't throw a unit away. But, I'm 3-0 back in Nate Maness. He's been an underdog every single time he's been in the UFC. He's won every single UFC fight. And even after getting massively injured, literally broke his jaw, he picked himself up off the floor, and he knocked his dude out in the second round. You can't ask for more of a junkyard dog than that. That is the kind of train that you don't get off of until it's completely derailed. I have been with Nate Maness this far. I know this is the chosen one, but at the end of the day, Umar is young. Umar can make young mistakes. And if he runs into a high-caliber, extremely skilled opponent that can cause problems for him, which I believe Nate Maness can and is, things could get hairy. I think I have to, on principle, play plus 675 on Nate Maness. And on top of that, I might even be looking at the Nate Maness by KO prop. He is 25-1 to win by knockout. I mean, that's got to be a sprinkle, right? I mean, maybe he doesn't knock out Umar. Maybe the decision at 16-1 or the split decision prop is maybe the better way to go, because I think this fight is going to play out relatively competitively, and it just kind of comes down to whether or not people collapse. Umar's not really a knockout guy. He's got a good kicking game. He likes to play the outside, moves around a lot. I don't think he's going to knock out Nate Maness with a head kick. I don't think he's going to chop down Nate Maness with calf kicks. Like, Maness is tough and durable enough. I think he'll survive that kind of an onslaught, get into boxing range, go to work, use his hands. The question for me is the grappling, right? The submissions. Nate Maness is pretty scrambly. His sub-D is on point. He does have good hips. He can sprawl and brawl. So, like, he just needs to make sure Umar doesn't take his back. Easier said than done. Like, I know that sounds super easy for me to sit here and be like, well, just don't let him get your back. I know it's easier said than done, but I think Nate Maness is the kind of guy that can survive even if he does slip up once, and for the most part, make sure Umar stays in front of him. And if Umar stays in front of him, Nate's the best guy he's ever fought. So I think this could get dicey. I'm not sure what I'm doing from a prop perspective. I'll probably throw one unit into the void on my guy Nate Maness because it's 675 at 7-1. Like, how can I not? I just don't understand how I can be expected not to go back to war with a guy that continues to show up and win as an underdog when technically I know that Umar is like the A side because he's got the last name, but like technically Nate Maness is the more proven fighter at this point. So we'll see what ends up happening here. I'm going to be on Nate in some way. Next up, Christos Giagos taking on Thiago Moises. Have not had a good read on this fight basically the entire week. I don't trust Thiago. He's a minus 255 favorite. Christos, I trust even less. He's a plus 215 underdog. Christos made 156. Moises made 155.5. No real issues for either guys. Big smile coming from Christos. He looks totally different now that he grew that beard out. It's amazing what the beard does for some people, myself included, actually. Thiago Moises, good smile and flex, looking confident as ever up there. Giagos does have a size advantage. This was a very respectful face-off. I really don't know what to do here because my brain tells me Thiago Moises probably gets this thing done, but Thiago Moises basically is like a come-from-behind type of guy a lot of times. He fights super close, super tight, so I think there's value on the dog here, but I don't trust Christos to hold the game plan together for a full 15 minutes. He could be one of these guys like his training partner, Michael Johnson, who wins round 1 and then the first 2 minutes of round 2 and then completely falls apart. So, like, just completely untrustworthy. No interest in betting this fight from my perspective. I'm going to pick Thiago and move on. Next fight up, Alan Baudot taking on Josh Parisian, the lone heavyweight fight on this card. Baudot came in at 253, Parisian 265 and a half. So tipping the scales, the big boy is. Alan Baudot, no problems at all. He's your classic middle of the road type of heavyweight. Doesn't need that extra time or limits, doesn't cut, just kind of rolls out of bed and shows up when he pleases. Josh Parisian, big old flabby boy, like, whoa, this is a heavyweight, folks. Looking very happy on the scales today. He talked in his interview about how he kind of relieved some of the pressure of fighting for the UFC. He got some other income flowing in, so the day job of fighting is not just like his end-all be-all, so he's a lot more relaxed coming into this one, which mentally speaking, I kind of like that advantage for him. This was a pretty good face-off. They size up pretty well, actually. I thought Parisian was going to look a lot bigger. He's kind of thicker, but Alan Baudot is not as short as I expected him to be here in this spot. Another back-and-forth spot, and the line is ping-ponged all week. Now we're sitting at minus 110s on both sides, so the bookie's tired of, moving this thing around. It opened up minus 110 both sides. It got pushed one way. Now it's back the other way. Everyone really loved some Alan Baudot earlier in the week, and now the Parisian love is coming back since he was a dog for a bit. I get it. I kind of leaned Alan Baudot early myself, and then my co-host on the Monday show kind of talked to me about the upside of Josh Parisian. I was like, a lot of that makes sense. Like, he does have a size and weight advantage here. He's probably going to have a volume advantage. If this thing gets to the ground, he will have a grappling advantage, and if he gets on top of Baudot, I don't know that Baudot is going to be able to get Josh Parisian off of him. So I kind of have found myself swinging from the Baudot side to the Parisian side, and there may be a question of like, well, but Clint, like, weren't you like all up on Baudot and his improvements last fight against Parker Porter? Yes, I was. But Parker Porter's not a guy that can knock you out with one single punch. He's a volume guy. Parisian is similar, but he's got a little bit more power behind him. And then Alan Baudot was getting like plus 210, plus 225. Like, that's where the number matters, folks. Like, people are doing the just pick the fighter to win thing, but that was a close fight that went to a split decision, and Alan Baudot probably wins it if he doesn't give up that round 3 takedown. What's this line look like then if he does beat Parker Porter? Like, this is probably Baudot being a decent-sized favorite, but that doesn't mean I'm, like, sold on the skill set of Alan Baudot. I think Josh Parisian can still very much cause problems for him. This is low-level heavies. If I could get plus 200 on one of these guys, I'd take it. I don't care which one it is. If you're giving me plus 200 on this fight, I'm taking it. So in this case, with it being at a pick'em, I guess I'm going to pick Josh Parisian and just end up calling it a day and moving on. Not going to do anything with this one. Just going to leave it there. Next fight up, we've got your co-main event, Neil Magny taking on Shavkat Rakhmonov. Magny came in at 171, Rachmanov 170.5. Magny gave a big old goofy smile up there. He's trying to break GSP's records this weekend. He came in excellent shape. Really looking good as Neil Magny right now. Shavkat, no concerns. Intense when he was flexing up there. Like, this guy is the prospect I think that everyone expects him to be, if I'm being honest. This was another intense face-off. Shavkat was like eyeing Neil Magny up and down like his next meal. I early on was talking about how I think there's value on Neil Magny, plus 300, plus 330. Like, it's hard for me. Again, Neil Magny's my guy. He's someone who just simply knows how to win fights. I go to war with Neil Magny constantly. You guys know that. He's one of my consistent betting guys, kind of like Alexander Volkov, except, of course, let's pretend the last Volkov fight where I picked against him didn't happen. So I should be backing Neil Magny here as a plus 300 underdog, right? Or I should be betting the Magny by decision at 5-1. Like, I actually think if you're going to play either side, that's a good hedge, is playing Magny by decision, honestly. But I can't do it. I do think Shavkat is legit. I do think he's real. I went back and I kind of rewatched the footage, and the advantages where Neil Magny's gonna have opportunities to win this thing is going to be in the grappling, the fence control, the cage time. Those things are not being scored favorably by the judges. They are not rewarding fighters for slowing down the fight and taking time off the clock that way. So in the striking exchanges, Shavkat is a much better striker. He's going to have far more power. Magny got hurt in his last fight a couple of times. Shavkat will take advantage of it. He won't let him work himself back into the fight. If he hurts him, he will immediately swarm and kill him if he ends up clipping him with something. And the big thing for me is Neil Magny's takedown defense. Like, I know he grinds people up against the fence, but he gives up trip takedowns almost constantly. Like 58% takedown defense. If you clinch up with him and you kick his leg out from under him, he just falls over. And you go back and watch some of his recent fights, the Chiesa fight, stuff like, he just is always going down. Shavkat's not a joke of a grappler. We saw that in his last couple of fights. He was the first guy to... I'm blanking the name of the Brazilian dude that he finished. I'm mixing him up with Thiago. You know who I'm talking about. He is no joke grappling. And I think there's some big submission upside here. The number for the sub prop is good for Shavkat. Guys, the submission special this week is going to be banging. The submission special, there's some good numbers this week. I'm hoping if this is the week we hit the submission special degenerate parlay, it's going to be a good one. But Shavkat by sub is going to be in there. I do like Shavkat. I think Shavkat inside the distance makes a ton of sense. I think Neil Magny's durability is starting to wane here. I think it's getting away from him, and Shavkat was able to match him, height and reach. These guys size up extremely well. He hits harder. He knows how to fight long. The reach advantage that Neil Magny is used to having over most of his fighters, it's not nearly as significant here in this spot. Shavkat's going to know how to mind the distance and control that space. So I just think Neil Magny's offensive game is not going to work quite as well against this particular opponent. And if he tries to do the volume striking thing, he's going to end up getting punched back. And that's going to be kind of the problem, where when he gets in those slugfests, I thought he damn near lost his last fight against a much lower level opponent. I think Shavkat's going to get him. So I'm definitely firmly on Team Shavkat here this week, not betting my guy Neil Magny. Again, if you want to do Magny by decision as some kind of a hedge or, the split decision prop, something like that to give you an out if you're heavily invested on Shavkat, I think that's not a bad way to go about it. And your main event of the evening, Arman Tsarukyan taking on Mateusz Gamrot. Arman and Mateusz came in at 156 each. Arman is jacked, folks. Oh my God. This guy has an unreal physique. I don't know how he makes 155 or 156 in this case, but he looked amazing up there, no issues, and he's gorgeous. It's not fair. Guys like Arman Tsarukyan existing are not fair. Mateusz Gamrot just shredded. He's the opposite, not as much muscle, a little bit bigger, way more shredded, less jacked, very intense. Another guy just in great shape. These guys face off. And Arman came in hot. Arman started barreling his way forward. They had to get split up. I talked about this where Arman wants this thing to go under and Mateusz wants this thing to go over. It's interesting because Arman is usually the decision guy and Mateusz has been the finisher recently. So, it's kind of a role reversal and it makes it hard for me to play a total on this one. I'm kind of leaning towards the over. I almost wanted to do, the low-hanging fruit lock type situation where I played the over 1.5 rounds on this one because I'll be honest, I do think it gets over 1.5 rounds, but the way Tsarukyan is coming in on this thing and the way he's fought his last couple of fights, the way he's believing in himself and talking about making a statement and being a contender, I don't really want to get in front of that train. If he comes out and smokes Gamrot in round 1, are we going to be shocked? I'll be a little surprised. I'll be impressed for sure, but I'm not going to be like jaw on the floor, pick it up type of thing. I'm going to be like, okay, like that's what he said he was going to do, and he's been doing that lately. So I don't know what to do with the total on this one, but this is going to be a great fight, extremely high level, contenders matchup face off here. Arman is minus 265, Mateos is plus 225, and there's a lot of arguments for that being a wide line. If you're gearing up with Mateos Gamrot this week, God bless you. I wish you all the luck in the world. Pre-fight, you probably have the value side, and not all underdogs are value. Like, I get hate comments for saying that in the chat all the time. Guys, let me be clear. There can be value on favorites, but we try to make these decisions before we see the fight play out. You only know if you're right after the fight is over. I don't know which side is the value side until we get in there. I think Arman Tsarukyan might be the one who ends up being the value side, but it's hard to argue against with a guy like Gamrot, with the pedigree, with what he's shown us in the UFC, with how he's handled people. Like, that's a guy you want at plus 225. That's the kind of spot where it's like, if you're giving me this fighter who is never anywhere near this number at this number, you take it. Like, I get that thought process. So anybody on the gamer side, good freaking luck. I think Arman probably gets this thing done. I've stayed clear of this fight for the most part. I've thought about throwing Arman in a parlay because, like I said, whether it's a close decision or whether it's a finish, I do think he gets his arm raised at the end of the day. But there is also something in the back of my mind that's like, if Arman comes in hot the way he's talking about, doesn't get the finish, there's a chance that Gamrot can take over in the later rounds. This is going to be a cardio battle. It's a 25-minute fight. Neither of these guys are used to getting finished early, so it'll be a pretty big feat if Arman's able to get this thing done and done early. We'll find out. I'm super excited for this fight. That's the Undefeated Post Weigh-In Show, folks. Make sure you smash that like button for me. Tweet this thing over on Twitter if you can. Share it with your friends. Tag somebody. Subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you haven't already. Make sure you check out Superbook Sports, because the lines and the numbers that they give us are awesome. I mean, especially for like the props and stuff, they're usually a little bit off market. That's why I get some of those really damn good numbers, because they hang bigger, juicier numbers than most books. And I know that that's the bookie trying to entice us to go ahead and snag something that maybe we shouldn't be betting on, but we keep hitting those. So I'm gonna keep going for them. That's gonna be the show here. But you know what? We've got PFL and we have Bellator this weekend, and some people ask me to chat a little bit about those. So I'm going to give you some bonus content here, and we're just going to run real quick through my thoughts on these. I don't have a ton of action on these fights, but I do have a little bit. So first off, let's talk about PFL, right? Brendan Loughnane, I'm big on this guy, but he's a minus 900 favorite. If you want to do like the chalky parlay wins thing, I actually thought about, like, I did do a chalky parlay. It's only a 4-legger, but I thought about doing like a bigger, chalkier parlay that's all three PFL, Bellator, UFC, and seeing if we can get one of those home, because most of the favorites roll here. I like Brendan Loughnane. I'm big on the guy. I think he's incredibly talented. I don't know a whole bunch about his opponent, Ego, but I do think Brendan probably rolls in this spot. Alejandro Flores, a slight favorite to Ryoji Kujo. Ryoji is the one who actually gave Brendan Loughnane a really good fight his last time out, I believe, unless I'm mixing my fighters up. He's a plus 130 dog, and I do find him interesting. I think some money has come in on him. I think he was a slightly bigger dog a little bit earlier in the week. From what I've heard, Brendan actually may have had some kind of like an illness or something like that he was dealing with that fight, and that's why I remember everybody like tweeting things and all the memes that people were like, oh yeah, I'm sure Dana White really is bummed he let this guy go like that. I think something was wrong with him. Like, I actually think there was a problem with Brendan that fight, so I don't know that that's a fair take. I think Ryoji may be interesting, but I don't know enough about either guy to really put my money on it. Sam K taking on Juan Adams. My guy, Juan Adams. You guys know I love Juan Adams. He's my dude. He's my boy, similar to Brian Kelleher. But the reason I love Juan Adams so much, he came on my podcast back before I was anything. Like, when I was not sure if I wanted to do fighter interviews and try to be a guy that was chasing Ariel Helwani, like, I didn't really know what the podcast was going to be at that point. I had Juan Adams and I had Jillian Robertson were the two that gave me the time of day and gave me interviews, and that's actually why I love Jillian so much. It's not because I'm obsessed with her and she's a redhead like everyone thinks. I've kind of played into that joke, but I just have a severe love for those two fighters for giving me that first chance way back in the day. So I'm a huge Juan Adams fan. I've been rooting for him to get back to one of these big shows. He's been putting work in on the regional scene, finally gets his shot. Sam K is a guy who realistically shouldn't be fighting at heavyweight. He's like a 205er, and not even a big 205er at that, but he's fast. He's fast and he's got heavy hands. Juan has shown to be hittable a couple times. He's gotten hit, he's gotten dropped. We saw what happened in the UFC. He was way too young, way too green to be in the UFC, so I don't want to like hold that against him. He's made improvements since then, and honestly, he should be able to crowd this guy, take him down, use his size advantage. Whether he grinds out a decision or he pounds this guy out, like Juan really should get this done. Minus 170, it's not a bad price tag. I know my heart's a little bit into this one, but like this is a size mismatch, and as long as Juan just doesn't like go to sleep with one power shot, he probably beats this guy. So I do like Juan Adams there in that spot. I'm being careful on it, though. Lance Palmer taking on Shimon Moraes. This was my big bet for this card, folks. I did bet Shimon Moraes. I tweeted this one out. 3 units, plus 130. Really like him here. Size advantage, youth advantage. I think Lance Palmer is shot, if I'm being completely honest. He's on a 3-fight skid. He's not looking good. He also looks like he's just not quite the same guy, and he's doing a quick turnaround. So, like, if he had an injury, did he have time to heal? If he had a problem he needed to fix, was it resolved? Is he looking for a paycheck? Like, I don't know that we're getting the best version of Lance Palmer possible right now. And even if we were getting the best version of Lance Palmer possible, he's really a primary grappler, and I don't know how well that works against Shimon Moraes. So if he's going to be stuck standing with Shimon, I like Shimon. I like Shimon a lot. This line has come down, so I beat a move there. Shimon's plus 115. I got plus 130 in my pocket for 3 units. I love that spot. At this point, the numbers shifted a little bit, so tailor fade, do whatever you want there. I'm just betting against the old guy. Denis Goltsov taking on Maurice Green. Goltsov is a minus 645 favorite. Maurice Green is plus 480. You guys know I've done my thing with Maurice Green a couple times. Like, you remember the Maurice Green round 3 sub, right? Like, that was one of my first ever, like, glory moments on Twitter when I called the insanity, the big upset, the submission prop at 10-1, the round 3 sprinkle, like that. That was kind of one of the first ones where I really started nailing those things. Denis Goltsov, he should win this fight. I mean, obviously, he's a near 7-1 favorite, right? He should win this fight. However, this guy makes big-time grappling mistakes. You go back and you watch his last couple of PFL fights. He really tries to, like, put on the forward pressure with people. He tries to rip people to the ground. And he gets off balance, he gets pushed over, he ends up on bottom. He's not good off of his back. Like, he's a decent offensive wrestler, but defensively speaking, he gets trapped on bottom. Maurice Green is not good, guys. Like, he's really not. He's a big guy. He's got decent jiu-jitsu. I like his rangy striking, like the teep kick that he throws up the middle. I actually think he'll have some success with that. And I think that he can cause Denis some frustration, some problems. And if they get into a scrambling situation, I absolutely think Maurice Green is capable of submitting Denis Goltsov. I'm just not sold on Denis Goltsov whatsoever here. I'm tempted to sprinkle the 12-1 sub prop with Maurice Green. I really am. We'll see what happens. At this point, I don't have a bet in. Luckily, Shimon Moraes is pretty early on in the afternoon here. So if I win that Shimon Moraes bet, maybe I'll throw a couple of units back in on some of these longer shots here. But Maurice Green at plus 480, like, I don't know that I really want to count on him to win. If he uses the striking correctly and stays at range, maybe he wins a close decision. Just because, again, Denis Goltsov doesn't have a real sense of urgency, and I do think he's going to struggle with the range. But Maurice Green is a turtle on his back. Like, if Denis Goltsov does get on top of him, if he doesn't make a mistake, if he doesn't let himself get swept or rolled, like, Maurice Green just doesn't know how to get back up to his feet. Granted, this is not quite as big and heavy of a man as he fought in the UFC that was able to hold him down, so maybe he could have more success. Maybe that's something that he worked on. I don't know. This is my PFL tinfoil hat spot that I'm looking at this and I'm like, I don't trust no Goltsov. Like, I don't know. Like, for whatever reason, I think Denis Goltsov is prone to making errors, and I think that if Maurice Green is in the right form, he can show up and shock the world here with a submission. And getting 12-1, y'all know me. I can't refuse my 12-1 sprinkles. Bubba Jenkins taking on Ronaldo Exon. I'll be completely honest, guys. I didn't even look at this one. Bubba Jenkins minus 280. I kind of assumed he'd be the favorite here. I think that makes sense. Leaving it alone. Ante Dela. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I got to go back and... I'm rusty. Like, my pronunciations are not always accurate, but they're even worse for, like, the lower organizations where I hear the name once every other year. Anti-Delja, though, he's taken on Shelton Graves. And this is a smash spot, folks. Like, this is like it's almost legitimately like a fixed fight. This is a spot where Anti is a minus 850 favorite. But how could you ever trust the guy? Like, he's another one that gives me serious Gold Zaw vibes. He just makes mistakes. Like, he wants to wang and bang, and he can get clipped. He can get rocked. He can get taken down. He has finished people by knockout and submission, and he's looked like an absolute monster, but then he's gotten like slight steps up, just tough guys that refuse to go away, and they make him go to close, hairy, tight decisions. I don't like it. I did put him in my parlay. I got him at minus 720, I think, for the parlay, so that happened yesterday when I tweeted it. My big chalk PFL parlay. Anti is in it, and it makes me nervous, because I've got a feeling if there's a bed shitter to be had, it might be him. His opponent, Shelton Graves, again, it's another one of these guys that probably just shouldn't be at heavyweight. He's over the hill. He never really made it. He's coming off to back-to-back knockout losses. Like, this is quite literally a spot where the PFL is going, we want Anti to proceed in the tournament. He's one of our guys. He's one of our stars. Who makes their promotional debut off of back-to-back knockout losses? This guy is getting a big step up in competition off of losses. They want this guy to get knocked out. They want a highlight reel knockout. Like, that's kind of the only reason I'm putting Anti in the parlay, is because I know what PFL's trying to do here. He should get this done. He should get it done round one. Chris Wade, Kyle Bochniak. I kind of agree with Chris Wade being a big favorite here, minus 540. I'm going to shout out my guy Sparring with Reality over at the Club and Sub Boys. He gave out a free play. Chris Wade, by decision, brings that price down to like minus 165, minus 170. I got to look and see if that's still available. But honestly, my boy, that's a sharp-ass spot. I like that. If you're going to play this one, I think bringing the price down by decision is probably a better choice. I mean, go ahead and parlay it, if you really want to. But, all these price tags, again, you're just eating chalk here. Next up, Renan Fahea taking on Klidson Abreu. Again, I've got Renan Fahea in the parlay. He's minus 540. He's taking on Klidson Abreu, who's a guy that was not a big 205er. I mean, he's a big, flabby guy. He's heavy now. But, like, for his frame, he probably could make 185 if you really wanted to, but he fought primarily at 205. The size difference between these two is comical. Like, you watch them face off on the PFL thing, and it's like, holy crap. It's like a senior beating up a freshman. Renan Fahea is a freak of nature. He's huge. He's jacked. He is ripped. But I'm also nervous about him because this is the guy that got away with the Phantom Tap against Fabricio Verdum, which, by the way, I am notoriously bad in PFL. I cannot get PFL right to save my life. I had my guy in that fight, and Renan Fahea legitimately tapped the broadcast booth. We're talking about how Verdum probably felt the tap and let up on the choke. The official didn't see it. So Renan Fahea starts pounding away, TKOs Verdum, retires the poor man when he lost the fight. Like, he legitimately got choked out, tapped, and they called it a no contest. And now they're trying to serve up easy cupcakes for this guy because he's marketable, he's a freak of nature, he's young, he's massive, he's Bigfoot Silva's son. Like, he's not really, but he looks like it. Klidson Abreu could do kind of what Verdum did. Renan is a guy that is scary on the feet, but he's so tall, so lanky, and I don't even know if he trains jiu-jitsu. I don't know if he even trains wrestling. Like, I know he comes out of Team Nogueira. He's working with some serious high-level grapplers like Jacare, or at least he was. But again, like, you look over his like Instagram page and stuff, it's all striking. It's all weightlifting and striking, and that's what kind of terrifies me here. He might be my bed shitter because Klidson Abreu is a big, thick man at heavyweight, and while he has not done well in the PFL so far, his last fight, he did finally decide, I'm going to go in and take this guy down and use my jiu-jitsu instead of trying to have a striking match with a guy that's got him outgunned, and it worked. He won a decision. So I'm a little scared that Klidson Abreu will be able to pull off the upset here in this spot by just kind of laying on a guy that has no answer from his back. I think that the size and strength difference should be enough that even if it hits the ground, Renan can like reverse position, push him off, fight back. We shouldn't end up in like a triangle situation. Verdum is one of the submission specialists that one of the best submission artists we've ever seen in the UFC and obviously in the PFL. So obviously Klidson Abreu is not on that level. He should win. He should win, but I just have to go ahead and give you guys the wrap on why I'm nervous about this guy. Anthony Showtime Pettis, minus 170, taking on Stevie Ray, plus 145. I don't trust Anthony Pettis. Like, we got on board with him his last fight, I'm pretty sure. I can't remember I think we bet on him his last fight. But Anthony Pettis is kind of a shell of himself these days. The PFL doesn't work great for him. He's talked about it in his interviews about how like he's felt pressure. You got to get the finish early. That causes him to make mistakes and make, dumb choices. He's a guy that really flows with the fight, waits for the opportunity. But because of that, he can lose lots of minutes in these fights. We saw it in the UFC. We saw it when he's up against these wrestler-type guys. Like, these fights end up being really close, even though he feels like he should clearly win because he likes to play the outside. He likes to keep the distance. He likes to pitter and patter at his opponents and wait for that perfect opportunity. And if that perfect opportunity never shows up, he loses the fight. He also is in as long as Stevie Ray doesn't finish him for like the PFL finals. One thing we got to make mention of with PFL is the scoring system. The way they rank these guys, it's all about that $1 million. It's all about getting to the end of the tournament. So Anthony Pettis can lose this fight by decision and still technically advance in the tournament. So he's on record talking about how he wants to slow the pace down. He wants to go out there and fight smart, not rush anything. He's fighting not to lose, guys. And Stevie Ray at plus 145, a guy that's hungry for a win and hungry for a finish, is kind of interesting to me because Anthony Pettis is literally just going to try and get out of this thing without losing. So I kind of feel like Pettis by decision, maybe the over is in play. If you want to take a run with the dog, maybe go for it because, the mental state, if you've got a guy that is out there looking for blood, trying to put food on the table versus a guy who knows he's safe and is just trying to stay that way, sometimes the junkyard dog is the one that pulls that upset off. So I have no bet on the co-main event for PFL. I'm tempted to fade Anthony Pettis again because it just seems to work right now. But I'm kind of feeling Pettis by decision is maybe like the optimal outcome for this particular fight. Main event, Bruno Capoloza, Matthias Scheifel. Bruno, minus 610, should win this one. Matthias is a guy who came from the Contender Series, got knocked out there, went to the PFL. He's 1-1, trading knockout wins and losses. He's just a big, burly dude. Like, this is a guy that comes forward, wants to wang and bang. Bruno does the same thing. Bruno's just a higher level than this guy. That's all it comes down to. Bruno is more physically gifted. I think Bruno hits harder. This is a man who could pull the upset. He's got a puncher's chance, but I'm not expecting it. Bruno closes out the PFL portion of my parlay because realistically, he should be getting this done. So moving on, I do want to talk to you guys about Bellator real quick, just to make sure we touch bases on all of that stuff. Cody Law, massive favorite, kicking off the day. 3 p.m., early start time. You guys will probably just barely be getting this info before the Bellator fights kick off. His opponent, James Gonzalez, is a plus 550 underdog. Cody Law is minus 750. Cody has been incredibly impressive in Bellator. However, he's also been given extremely low-level, extremely hand-picked opponents. James Gonzalez has had a much, much harder path to this point, and he's fought really closely and really competitively with some very good guys. I think this line is extremely wide. I put a half unit on James Gonzalez. The money's still flowing in here on Cody Law. Maybe I should have waited. I think I got plus 520, so I'm missing out just a little bit on that plus 550, but I just threw a little half unit on it, and I also am going to play the over 1.5. I think that James Gonzalez is tough and durable enough to get in there with Cody Law. And you know what, actually, I don't know if I'm going to play it. I might play it. I don't know if I'm actually going to play it, but I think it's not a half bad bet. Cody Law has been smoking everybody out in the first round, so everyone expects this thing to be over quick. James Gonzalez is tough. He's durable. He's a grinder. He's going to make this go a little bit longer, so you can probably expect this fight to last a decent bit longer with him being involved. I think we probably get to the second or third round, probably even a decision. I don't know if we're going to get props on this one, but James Gonzalez by decision, if we can find that somewhere, would probably be the way to get like the optimal amount of juice out of that squeeze. Anatoly Tokov taking on Muhammad Abdullah. Another spot where Tokov really is just like a prospect, and Bellator knows how to handle these guys. The chalk parlay just rolls, folks. He's minus 900. Muhammad Abdullah is a plus 625 underdog. The problem is Abdullah is a legitimate puncher's chance type of guy. He's another one of these dudes that's not a pushover, decent level experience, got some good wins, got some good losses. So like Tokov should win. But another one where it's a young fighter. I don't like laying 10-1 on these like really young, early career, I guess is maybe the best way to say it. Everyone roasted me earlier in the week for saying Vanessa Demopoulos is young at 33 years old. She's younger than Jinh Frey, folks. She's young in the UFC. Like, chill. That's what I mean. So I don't like trusting these lower level fighters at these giant chalk price tags. These fights are technically setups. They should win them, but we've seen before that doesn't always go to plan. Lucas Brennan, minus 500 over Johnny Soto. Soto, again, didn't really look into this one too much. Lucas Brennan, I think, deserves to be the favorite. It's Bellator. Probably a little wide. He probably wins. Pam Sorensen versus Kat Zingano. I spent more time than I care to admit to you guys on this one. I spent more time than I care to admit to you guys researching this fight because the hat's itching, boys. Like, okay, so Katsi Ngannou is a 135er. Now, at the end of her career, she's fighting up at 145. Most of these women that are mid to low tier, it doesn't matter if you're 135, 145. They just kind of bounce around between them. They don't cut a ton of weight. It's not that big of a difference for them. But when you get the more experienced women, the ones that actually need the 145-pound limit, like a Pam Sorensen, it does matter. Pam is thick, boys. Like, Pam is a big, muscly, heavy woman, and she's a 2-1 underdog here in this spot. Katsi Ngannou has been sidelined with family okay, first off, let me get this straight. There is no slander for Katsi Ngannou here. Alpha Cat was my girl, and I thought she was going to rule the UFC when she got there. I was ready to go to war for her. She had so many issues in her personal life. The trauma, her husband dying, the brain injury, like all this stuff. I am shocked she is able to compete at this point in her life. I'm extremely happy that she gets to do so. But she is a grappler. Her striking is nothing to write home about. She is an athlete. She's explosive. And she has mauled her last 2 opponents. But these have been hand-picked Bellator opponents that are awful. I mean, like, we're talking 5-4 type of opponents. Like, these are terrible, terrible opponents that are nowhere near the caliber of opposition someone like Katsi Ngannou should have been facing. She still made mistakes. She still, like, dove on submissions that weren't there and gave up bad positions. Against these lower-level opponents, they couldn't take advantage of it. She would get into her wrestling gear, put her singlet back on, and just scramble right back up into top position. Pam Sorensen is not that opponent. Pam Sorensen is a BJJ black belt. Pam Sorensen has fought some decent-level UFC caliber fighters and done pretty well. She goes to split decision almost every single time because she fights very evenly with her opponents. She's a tank. She got hit hard by her opponent last time out, the Hawaiian girl. What's her name? I took a flyer on her against Cyborg live in that fight because of her heavy hands. She took everything that chick had to offer and kept coming, saying, thank you, I'll have some more. She is durable. She's not going anywhere. And because she's a black belt and she knows how to roll, she knows how to scramble, I don't think Katsi Ngannou's armbarring this chick. So what we have now is a fight where... Oh, and one more thing. Sorry, you look back at Pam Sorensen. She fought Felicia Spencer. You remember Felicia Spencer? Like the real legitimate thickness at 145, wrestling, jiu-jitsu credentialed girl that everyone thought was going to be the one to dethrone the queen, Amanda Nunes. Yeah, Pam fought her. She had nothing for her. Like, it was a one-sided wrestling game, but Pam Sorensen had good takedown defense. She had good hips. She kept the fight standing. She forced some striking exchanges. When she did get on her back, she was defensively sound. She knew what she was doing. She defended every position well. She didn't get submitted. She didn't get finished. She didn't take a lot of damage. Like, it took everything Felicia Spencer had to hold this woman on the mat, and that was all she could do. So could Katsi Ngannou do that also? Yeah, I mean, probably. Like, maybe probably. But am I confident that she's just going to be able to maul Pam Sorensen for 15 minutes without making it close? Guys, don't lay the bank on Katsi Ngannou. That's all I'm saying. Like, this fight could play out extremely close. This one could be very competitive. And I will not be at all surprised if Pam Sorensen, being the active, healthy fighter, gets her arm raised here today, this afternoon in Bellator. So I haven't bet it yet because, you know, it's that whole don't fade a fighter with a bad fighter thing I'm trying to steer a little bit clear of after last week. But I think Pam Sorensen probably is the value side, and it looks like a little bit of money has come in on her. I think she was a bigger underdog earlier in the week. Brett Primus, big underdog to Alexander Shabliy. Didn't look into this one. I see some money's coming on Brett Primus. He's the known name. That doesn't surprise me. I can't really tell you anything here in good faith because I don't know. Same thing, Bryce Logan, Mandel Nalo. I didn't really get time to look into that one, so I don't have a comment there. Mankonda taking on Hamasi. It looks like some money's been coming in on Mankonda. Saba Hamasi's somebody that everyone was like super sold on, I guess, last time around, and I missed the train. I talked about taking him by knockout. He's a wild man. He likes to knock people out. He's another wang and banger. He gets in there, wants to swing heavies until somebody falls over. So I think violence is maybe a decent look in this spot. The under 2.5. Let me get this page to load here, and I can tell you. I mean, they got a 1.5, so you'll have to find a different book that offers like an alternate total or something. The over 1.5 minus 150, under 1.5 is plus 120. So, I mean, again, I'd kind of probably side on violence, but I don't know if it'll be that quick. I kind of like Hamasi, but like I said, the line's moved the other way. Not confident on that. Joanne taking on Lara, women's MMA. Didn't even look at this one. I don't know either of these women. I just know one of them does like the tribal paint thing at weigh-ins, and I love it. Fabio Aguilar taking on Aaron Jeffrey. Someone asked me about this one on Twitter, and I didn't spend a lot of time on it. This is kind of how I treat Bellator and PFL. Like, I hone in on the spots that I really like, and then whatever time I have left over, I look at the other fights. So some of these ones are the ones where I'm not overly familiar with, and I'm just going to kind of watch and download some information, maybe bet on them in the future, not spend a ton of time on them now. I'm leaning Aaron Jeffrey. I think he's the rightful favorite here. Minus 175. It seems pretty fair. I do think he wins the fight. Not sure on the method or anything like that. But again, not one I feel super strongly about. Achilles Mata taking on Dan Moret. This is one that I wish I had more time. I wanted to dig further into this one. Some money is coming on Mota, and I kind of agree with it. I kind of felt like they disrespected Mota with how wide this line was when it opened up. He's a dude that comes to fight. I mean, Dan Moret also is not someone, he's not a slouch. You don't want to, roll him over. But, like, this felt like a pick'em style fight to me. So without a ton of technical info for you, I kind of feel like I like the dog in Achilles Mota. But the line has come down a lot, obviously, and the value is basically gone at this point if there was any to begin with. Again, I didn't really dive in and do, like, a total research on it, so I can't tell you that that's for sure the side that I want to be on. But I think it's a dog or pass spot. Cassius Cain taking on Brendan Ward. I'm not sold on Cassius Cain. I don't think much of Cassius Cain. I think Brendan Ward being the favorite makes sense. Minus 300. Okay, it's Bellator. Let's go. Throw him in the chalk parlay. Enrique Barzola and Magomedov. This is a very competitive line. It's the end of the tournament, I believe. So even though neither of these guys is the champion, it's a 5-round fight. And I don't know who that favors exactly. I almost think that maybe favors Enrique Barzola a little bit. Magomedov has only lost to the absolute cream of the crop that non-UFC organizations have to offer. Barzola, I tried to bet against him a couple times because he has not been great in the UFC. Now, since he's dropped a weight class, since he's moved over to Bellator, he's looked a lot better. He's a lot stronger than a lot of these guys. His wrestling is on point. He is vicious. Like, he really wants to hurt people in there. It's just sad that, wrestling is his primary art, so he doesn't end up hurting them all that often. He just kind of grinds them, but still, it works. He's been cashing tickets. And I've continuously tried to bet against him. Not today, folks. This is probably the spot where I should bet against him. I think this is a buy low spot on Magomedov just because I do think that he is the blue chip prospect of the two. I think Barzola is going to beat a lot of people in Bellator, give some guys really good fights. I think he'll give Magomedov, a work today. I think it'll definitely be a competitive match, but I don't know that I really want to play Enrique Barzola at dog odds, and I think a lot of people are jumping on the train because of what they've seen recently. He's fought nowhere near the competition in Bellator that Magomedov is, and Magomed is a guy that has a ton of experience, a lot of savvy, good camp, good training. I mean, he's got everything you want, right? Magomedov by decision at plus 100 even money kind of feels good to me there. Maybe just the money line straight. With this being a 5-round fight, I'm not overly confident in either of these guys when it gets to that point. I wonder whose gas tank may potentially give out and or hold up in the championship rounds. So if this is just a scramble fest 25-minute wrestling match, I don't know who's going to get tired first. They also might cancel out the wrestling, and this maybe ends up being like a dull striking match, and it just flies over to an easy decision. And I'm not really sure I think Magomed probably has the advantage in the striking ever so slightly. So yeah, I think buy low maybe on Magomed. It looks like a ton of money came in on Barzola early, and now the money is kind of swung back towards Magomed. If I'm doing my chalk parlay, Magomed's probably the side that I'm going to be on there. Higo taking on Danny Sabatello. Sabatello's the one that went in my real parlay. The only Bellator chalk line that I threw in there with the other PFL legs for that 4-legger. I like Danny Sabatello. I like him a lot. This guy knows how to talk. He knows how to wrestle. You beat my boy Brett Johns, and I take notice. He absolutely mauled Brett Johns on short notice. That's not something you do. Like when Brett Johns went over to Bellator, I imagined I would just be backing him time and time again. Cashing tickets left and right. Don't care the price tag. Brett Johns wins. However, he ran into Danny Sabatello, and Sabatello just mauled him. His wrestling is so good. His scrambles are on point, extremely high level with this stuff. He's got some okay ground and pound. He's got a submission threat on him, and he's got an incredible gas tank. Leandro Higo, I'm not entirely sold with, and he's kind of like a one-hitter quitter power puncher type. Danny's also a talker. He's really been getting under the skin of Higo. There's some bad blood going into this one. If you come in and try and take Danny's head off, he's going to level change on you, put you on your back, and you're not getting back up. So what I've done is I've got him in the parlay. Obviously, we're hoping that parlay cashes. I put 4.4 units to win 4 on it, so it's a big parlay. But again, we're trusting the chalk in the PFL and Bellator organizations. I don't know what it is, but I see everybody else cashing all the chalk parlays. I always manage to find the one bed shitter, and I go 4 out of 5 legs or something. So I tried to wean it down to just 4 people that I really think should get the win. crossing our fingers that comes through. And I sprinkled Danny Sabatello by submission round 4 and round 5. It's 25-1 and 40-1. I think he's going to be able to get a late finish once Higo starts to gas out. He did go on record talking about, again, the mental warfare, wanting to torture Higo, not letting him out of there until he's ready to put him away. So, like, I think this is going beyond the 15 minutes. I don't think he's going to get him out of there suddenly in the second round or something. I think he's going to maul him, bust him up, try to get some ground and pound off of him, make him feel bad. And then when he's literally like ready to throw in the towel, he'll finally mercifully let him out of there. And I think that gas tank will start to edge off there in kind of the third round. So fourth and fifth round is where the money comes. And I do think we'll get that submission because Danny's, I mean, if he does get like a back control, flatten him out, ground and pound type of thing, I'm going to be really sad if he gets the fourth or fifth round finish via TKO because he's not a TKO guy. He's a submission guy. So I hope Higo like offers up his neck or something like that and we get it that way. Main event here, Johnny Eblen undefeated taking on Gegard Mousasi. Like, how do you not just roll with the Moose here? Gegard Mousasi was an elite fighter at the UFC level, moved out, ended up getting his belt taken from him by one freak of nature, but ever since then it's been complete domination, everything he does. Little concern with the weight cut. He came in heavy, he had some kind of an issue, but he made it, and he looked okay doing it too. He didn't look too bad after he made that drastic weight cut. So I do think Gegard is the side here. I don't know a ton about Eblen. He looks pretty impressive so far, but this is a massive step up in competition. I believe he's a primary grappler. We've seen that just doesn't work against Mousasi. Like, Mousasi's a good enough wrestler that he's able to defend these things. He's able to stay safe, get back up to his feet, and then he puts his hands to work. Only one guy has been able to blanket him outside the UFC and get the win that way. So I'm not convinced that Eblen's going to be the guy to do it. I think Mousasi probably TKOs him at some point, and I will probably have a taste of that TKO prop in like a Bellator PFL Hail Mary sprinkle thing. But I do like the Moose. So again, Bellator PFL, chalk probably rolls for the most part. A couple of sketchy spots with some of these lower level matchups, but today's going to be really fun, and hopefully it's an appetizer. Hopefully we come away with a little bit of extra jingle in our pockets, and then we attack UFC Vegas 57. You got an hour-long post-weigh-in show video today, folks. You better smash that like button for me. Show Pub Sports Radio some love. Good luck on all your degenerate action, everybody. We'll see you online. I'll be tweeting out my official card for the show earlier in a couple of minutes here. And then, of course, I'll be tweeting out my official card for UFC tomorrow, first thing in the morning after I finalize all my plays. Let's roll. Let's have a dang good weekend.